Tonight's special Christmas episode is a continuation from last week's show where Keith came on and told us about several of his Dogman-related experiences, but unfortunately we ran out of time. So on tonight's show, he's going to finish sharing his experiences with us. Thanks so much for coming back to listen to him do that, and Merry Christmas.
This is, on a side note, kudos to, I think her name was Kim. She was talking about Ember having more of a childish or adolescent style dog man or dog woman at this point, and that's what I'm going to say this probably was. This thing was small, and this was a little braver than the other ones. This one came up closer, and it was, again, behind a pine tree, and I couldn't quite see it. I could make out the silhouette, full body, but it had squatted down. I'm going to say she because I'll get to it. But I'm going to say it was a she because of what I'll tell you here in a minute. I got probably within maybe 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet of this thing, and it was crouched down. It probably wasn't any taller than maybe 4.5 feet, 4 to 4.5 feet tall. It was small. Wasn't big or stocky or anything like that. It's just small. And this is one of the few times where I really got like, oh, heck no. I got to back away from this thing. This thing did like you would see in a horror movie. And we'll bring up horror movies again. It was one hand came out to the side, another hand came out to the same side just below it, and then it peeked its head out. And again, low light, I couldn't tell you the color, no eye shine, nothing like that. This thing, man, I'm 90% certain it wasn't mind speak, was not mind speak. I'm 90% certain. But this girl, female sounding critter, said, I don't remember if it said come closer or come here. Yeah, no, either way, I'll take C, none of the above. And I backed out of that place. I had left at that point afterwards. Yeah, I didn't want to play those games. And again, that was summer of 04, January of 04. I'm sorry, July of 04. Didn't really hear too much anymore. Obviously, I'm not going to go back out there and hang out in that area where that cabin is because you never know, there could be someone else down there. I don't want to, intrude on anybody. December of 04 was the next time that ran across something but didn't see it. That's a good way to put it. That is where I saw tracks, and I'll get to it. Same road. There's like S-turns, dirt road. On the north side of the road, it's like up an embankment, probably 2.5, 3 feet. And then it's the taller grass, some trails going through it. I think that's where hunters go. And then it goes into the thick pines again. South side of the road. Did I say north side? Anyway, south side of the road, it's a swamp. So you kind of S-turn through it or whatever. And again, the girl I was with at that time, she had gotten a phone call from one of her friends. And she was on that road, and scared would be an understatement, a very gross understatement. There was terror in this girl's voice. I'm on one side of the room and she's on the other talking to her, and I can hear her. She's screaming and she's saying stuff. There were some adult words, so we'll leave those out. But oh my God, leave, just leave me alone. And she's saying this, but you could hear the horn on her car, and her horn was dying. But she told us where she was at, and she's saying, my car is dying, it's dead or whatever. And there's something black in front of me laying in the middle of the road, and it won't leave. And uh-oh. So we took off. I already know kind of what we're running into. We took off down there, and she was facing westbound. And so I pulled up in front of her. So I'm facing eastbound. And I get out of the vehicle. I'm looking around. I don't see anything. Unfortunately, I didn't have a flashlight. But this is wintertime. It's bright outside at night, fuller type moon. So everything's basically glowing except the woods. And I don't see anything. I'm looking around. I don't see anything. She's saying it was laying right here. I didn't see anything. So I'm just going by what she said. But anyway, we're checking. Didn't see anything. I end up getting her car jumped. It just took a couple minutes. It wasn't a long time. And everything was good. Got her up and going again. And I went back to my trunk to throw the jumper cables in. And I noticed something. They were almost like on the embankment, which there wasn't before I started this issue with getting out of the vehicle and checking. There wasn't anything there at that time. Something had slid down the embankment just behind my car. I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. Big thing that you get with people talking about Sasquatch and the critters are smell, nothing. And when I'm looking for this, I'm looking even as much as even detail of something breathing, where it's, it would cast a fog type out of its mouth or something from hitting the cold air. I didn't see anything. However, in the road, now this was roughly a fresh snow. It wasn't plowed or tore up by cars, so there's actually untouched snow in the road. There were just a couple footprints, or paw prints, if you will, that weren't there when I started this whole situation. And I looked at them, and they were clearly large canine prints. And it didn't have like a heel or anything like that. It's half man, half wolf type nonsense or anything like that. It didn't have that. It had very large dog paw prints, and there was just a couple, front, back. To me, it looked like it was the fronts, but that was it. And in the direction it was going down into that swamp. And at that point, we just kind of got out of there, and we're like, whoa, crazy, that was close. I mean, especially for something like that. And I think that was pretty much it for that time. And again, a couple years had passed now. Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one issue. This was, again, back around that same time in December of 2004. My girl and I, she had a friend that had passed away. Whatever circumstances, it's irrelevant to this, but it's a younger girl had passed away, and she was buried in the town south of where we're seeing all this stuff. And where she lived was where my one buddy did, there just across the street of the main that I spoke about earlier. We had gone to the graveyard, and it's just one of them things, cruising around at night, and she wanted to go say hi, so we found her grave site and brushed it off, cleaned it up, and she did a little talking and everything like that. No big deal. It is what it is. Out of nowhere, I get that feeling again. How I'd mentioned with the inside, almost like that freeze motion with the cats or the Sasquatch, and that frequency, the weird frequency, if anything. We get that again, and this is where a little bit of almost the paranormal kind of gets intertwined with some of this stuff. And behind me, there was a girl's voice, a teenage girl's voice, and yes, unfortunately, this was a teenage female that had passed. A teenage girl's voice said, "Run, they're coming." And it was that clear, but it was panicked. And the girl and we looked at each other like, did you just hear that? And both of us, I could tell I turned pale. I know she did. She did as well. And just a couple seconds later, we heard something to start howling. And it was further south of us. And it startled us. And we're like, oh, heck no, we're not sticking around for this. And it was just one sound. But as we were going from the grave site to the vehicle, more and more started. And we took off. We got back to our house. And you're talking travel-wise, probably 7 to 10 minutes, if that. We're out on the front porch, and we're talking about what we just went through. Then all of a sudden, you started hearing them more. And then in this park area where that ranger station is at, that's where I could guess where the stuff was coming at. you could hear them starting to pipe up. Now, if it was anything, it wasn't Dogman. I mean, those sound a little different. These I think were coyotes, and I think in fact, I'm sure these were coyotes, and I think what they were doing, they were either the ones from the south were either north tracking a deer or game, we'll say game of some sort, but they were converging on the spot that's inside that park. And you heard them. You heard the yiping and the hollering and everything else that the coyotes do. And then we're sitting there like, oh, wow, those are coyotes, man. They must be tearing something up. And like they're frenzy, like they're frenzy, feeding frenzy, if you will. Now they get kind of crazy. And then came another howl. That was not them. And distance from, just to give you a distance perspective, if it was a quarter mile, that would probably be a long shot. Distance between the house and this park is not far at all. And anyway, there was this howl, and it only happened twice. And the only way I can explain it, I'm a fan of different music, we'll say that. And the initial beginning of the howl was very bassy and guttural. If you people listen to like the hardcore death metal, where they got that, it was like that. And it was almost, even at that distance, you could feel it. It was really strange. I don't know if it was kicking out that frequency again or what. I don't know. And then it went more into still a higher pitch, but it still had that death metal sound. Very loud and way too long for it to be a human. And you heard the coyotes, they were piping up and doing everything and doing what they do. And then one last howl, the second howl of this bassy death metal beast, I'll call it. You heard it, but it was more, how'd you put it? Authoritative. It was commanding. It was very like, hey, I'm ruling this joint and this is the way it's going to be. And after it stopped, the coyotes went quiet. It was almost instant. I mean, it's like you hear the things of people being out in the woods. There's all the noise of the wildlife. Then when one of these critters come around, one of the cryptids come around, everything gets quiet. Yeah, it was like that. And then that was it. I didn't go out to look. Even the next day, didn't go out to look. Didn't really do anything else after that. And then for a couple years, things were fairly quiet. I mean, nothing really crazy happened. And now that family that I had mentioned, they had moved, and it was just basically further down the street, but closer to that park. Nothing crazy. You'd still hear stuff in the woods walking through 2 feet. Silhouettes maybe of something. And then you had those, on occasion, you would look out the front window and you'd have those sky blue topaz eyes again, kind of looking. And it wasn't anything stationary because it would blink and then kind of move side to side, duck a little bit, and then it would just walk away. We didn't mess with them. They didn't mess with us. They didn't come into the yard or anything like that. Yeah, that was it. And that went on from, I'd say about 2006. And I think they had left. I think they had moved again. I think it's like 2013, 2014. Haven't been back since. Another issue that I had, don't want to sound too freaky, but another girl that I had, was a second wife. This was in 2013. And only one incident in, there's a metro park out by where I'm at. One that I'd mentioned earlier with the fire department. And then this one is another park. It's a metro park system that we have here in Michigan. And again, this was a small one. I think it was fall of 2013. My wife and I were just walking down one of these back trails, one that's a little less traveled. The park, I think it divides Oakland and Livingston County. I think the south end of it. But anyway, we're walking through this trail, and out of the corner of my eye, it's about 50 yards. It's daytime still. I don't even know if it was like 4 o'clock or so in the afternoon. I caught something running, and I thought it was a person to begin with, because again, this was small. And it kind of startled me, like, what in the world are you doing just running through the woods like that? But as I noticed it a little more, and before it got to this largest tree, I don't know if it was like an oak or maple. I suck at trees. But it had ran to this tree, and it's about 50 yards away. Like, that had hair. And I went over to this thing. I'm like, hold on, sit tight for a second. And I walked up to it. The only way that I could say it, I walked up to this, and this thing was hiding behind this tree. Now, this tree, easy 3 feet in diameter. I mean, it's an old tree. And the only thing that I saw, its shoulders. I saw its right shoulder and its right arm, right hand, and claws they were dark claws. They were proportionate to the body, to the fingers or whatever, but they weren't long. Like how you see some people get crazy with their long fingernails. It wasn't like that long, but they were proportionate. It had a darker, almost like an auburn, like a dark auburn color, maybe a couple shades darker than a, what's that dog? Like an Irish setter. And I got probably, if I would have taken another step, I probably could have reached out and touched it. I mean, so you're talking probably within 5 or 6 feet of this thing. And it was short. This was under 5 feet. And slender build. I didn't see any muscle build or anything like that. But I could hear it. And this thing, it had a fast pant to it. But I got that, again, there's like a deep, I don't know if you want to call it spiritual or not, but there is almost like a empathy. I think that is where you can feel something, a person's emotions or something like that. I just had that feeling that this thing was scared. I mean, the way that it had its back to the tree. I didn't see a head. Its head was turned to the left. And the way it was hugging the tree for the most part, fast paced breathing, and it was scared. And at that point, I'm like, man, I felt like a butt. That's, for being listener friendly. Yeah, that's how I felt. I felt bad. I really did. I felt compassion. And I had a 45 on my side. I could have handled it if I, needed to, but why? Stupid. I felt this compassion. And I just said, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not going to hurt you. You're okay. And I was really calm with it. It's like you're trying to talk somebody down. And as I was doing it, its breathing kind of went down, but I'm like, I'm going to leave now. You're okay. You're all right. And I just said that as I backed up a little bit, a few steps, and I turned around, got back on the trail to the wife, and that was it. I left it alone. And no, did I keep an eye on it? No. I made a conscious effort to not look at it, just in case this thing was looking at me leaving. I didn't want it to be any more afraid. And to some of the other people that put on there, I think it was Kai, maybe he's talked about, or was it Kim? I don't remember. I'm sorry for both of that. But I never once thought if mom and dad were around. Never once crossed my train of thought there. And nor did I ever even consider getting a picture or taking a video or anything like that. In that moment, I don't think really you think about that type of stuff. I mean, there's a couple things that would maybe go through my head is how to put it. If you have the time, you got to pay attention to what you're dealing with. And this is kind of a side note commentary here. It's almost like you have to pay attention and be involved with what you're dealing with right now. Not, oh, I need to get my phone and take a picture. No, that's not how this works. And and unfortunately, and I don't want to bad talk people that hurry up and get their phone out or anything like that and take videos or pictures of either Dogmen or Sasquatch or whatever. But one, if you're out there walking around in the woods and you got your video camera going or something like that, you're expecting to see something. Or you're out there with your camera running and you're expecting to film something that's not quite authentic. That's a good way to put it. So that's how I feel about that stuff. Now, further on, and I don't know if I put a date to that. I think that was like 2013. Sorry. Later on, personal, second marriage didn't work, but I'm now with a good girl. Side note, beautiful wife now. Now it was both of our turns. And again, this is on them same backside roads that I've run across a lot of these things with. We're just driving back road. This was 2018. I believe this was either late fall or early winter, 2018. Crazy enough, in the same spot where the girl had the issue with the car breaking down and going out there. Same exact spot. And we're just driving around, BSing. We're talking our things that, husband and wife do or whatever. And out of the corner of her eye, up on that embankment, so I'm westbound. This is on the north side of this street. Up on the embankment, we're doing probably 30. And for a couple 100 feet or so, there was something just on top of the embankment. This was black. I know that this was black because I kind of looked to and saw it. It was running with us. Didn't attack, didn't jump in front of us, didn't yell and scream. Again, didn't smell anything. And after it got to a point where it started getting out of the S-turns, it just started back off into the taller pines. And that was it. Now, one other time that I had, and this is back by that ranger station, 2019, I think this was getting into summertime, so I'm going to say it was probably late June, early July, so it wasn't crazy hot yet. I'm out there by this ranger station, and this is where that Red Dawn movie is going to tie back into as well. This gives you kind of a visual with what I'm dealing with. I walk out there, and it's just myself. I go out there, and at that ranger station, to the west of it, they have like a little pavilion area. I had to use the bathroom or whatever. And I come out of the bathroom, and I'm looking, and it would be a little further west, a little further south. It's all mowed, and then it goes down a significant size hill, down into like a side trail in a swamp. This was weird. I don't know if I saw a top of the head or not. I don't think I did. I know I saw from the elbows up. And this had long hair. Again, you can refer back to the Ozzy Osbourne Bark at the Moon thing. But this was blonde. And now I say blonde, imagine the hair of like a golden retriever. It was about that color. I could see long enough claws, big enough hands, whatever this was, it was pretty huge. Being at the drop off, again, this was probably, if this thing, 6.5 feet tall, maybe. But what it was doing, it was flailing its hands around. And I'm like, what in the world is this thing doing? And it was running back side to side from how I was positioned. And I had walked along just on the outskirts of this wood line off to my left. And I got to a spot that was kind of a clearing going down into these woods. Keep in mind, these are the pine trees where they're kind of, they must have been planted. So they're kind of in rows. And I kind of got to this clearing, and almost instinct went into my head. It was like, wait a minute, this is a distraction. And sure enough, it was. I turned my head quick. And as I did that, there was a black Dogman. Now, what did I see of that? It ducked fairly quick. Now, this is probably 100 feet back in the woods or so. I wouldn't say any farther than that. Saw shoulders at one point, arms and hands at one point, but for the most part, its head. Its head, it was like a round, fat head. I mean, it wasn't the, was that German Shepherd style or whatever. This is more roundish, like it'd be like a Rottweiler or whatever. It was all black. And I saw most of its head, and it was kind of ducking down behind a log. Or, I'm sorry, not a log, a tree stump. It wasn't as big as a tree stump. It was just kind of squatting down behind it. And for reference, we're going to go back real quick to that movie, The Red Dawn. If you watch the cabin scene where the two dads are talking with the bad guys on the PA system, and there's the kids they're kind of hunkered down behind a log. Yeah, go about 75, 80 feet behind them, 100 at max. And it was right there. When they shot that movie, they were in a hot spot for that, and them people didn't even realize it. But I'm looking at this thing, and me being me, I'm like, hey, it's kind of wave. I'm like, yeah, I see you. You're good. Don't worry about it. Nothing big. And it just kind of, like a dog would. You speak goofy to a dog, it kind of turns its head. It did that. And I sat there for a couple minutes and watched it. I'm like, all right, I'm out. I just kind of waved at it and turned around and walked away. Turned my back to it. I mean, so that's how much of a, I must be an anomaly with this stuff, because a lot of times I don't get anything threatening ever. But other than that, there hasn't been anything until talking to the wife. She had seen something here at where we live now, the center of Oakland County, good way to say it. And this was back in, was it last year? No, this is pre-COVID. I don't remember. No, this is I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't remember. It's been within a couple years ago, I think. But it was, no, it was last year. My bad. Sorry about that. This was last year, fall time. Leaves have fallen. The wife is getting ready to go to work, and she leaves 8:15, 8:30 in the morning or so, and she's walking out to her vehicle, and between our driveway and the side road that goes along, it's paved, it's populated, there was a wolf. This was on all fours, and she had made mention it to me. Between my driveway and the street that I'm on is maybe, I think our property's 30 feet. That part is like 30 feet. Yeah, I think so. But anyway, she said there was a very large black dog. It didn't really get into specifics other than it was very long and tall. And my wife, she's like 5'7", and this thing's head came up to her shoulders. Not too far away from it. I mean, she was within herself, probably 20 feet away from it. And I think this is part of that spiritual thing, because what she said it did, it looked at her, and there was a sense of calm that came over her. Like it was almost like a calm of you're being protected. And it just took a few steps and just faded away. That's the only thing that it did. Now, as far as the Dogman stuff, that's pretty much it. But I do want to go back a little bit to that ranger station. And this is kind of a side note. This is, I think, where the Dogmen and the Paranormal cross paths. Now, this area is a heavily lined area. I've seen a lot of stuff that would be more for the My Paranormal Experience podcast. But anyway, I had gotten into some issues. I had to do some forced volunteering, if you want to call it that. And this was back in 2004. That's coming back to this. I was doing my community service. Everything was all hunky-dory. And I was talking to the lady that was overseeing me. And she's asking where I was living and what I was doing and everything like that. And I told her, and I had made mention of something. I think I had mentioned actually that ranger station. Didn't say anything about the critters. Didn't say anything strange. But she's like, oh, yeah. She's like, I know that place very well. And this lady, for the record, she was a Wiccan pagan. So that's the faith that she has. I myself, Christian. But she brought up this thing. And my buddy had mentioned it too, the one I had went sledding with. And neither one of these people know each other. But she had said, oh, yeah, there's something went on in that ranger station. And it man, trying to be listener friendly. some people did some bad stuff to animals, and it involved a Ouija board. That's that's a way to put it. Sorry, I almost got choked up. But they did some bad stuff and opened something up in that house. And whatever it is that is, I don't know if it's still there or not. I don't know. But these kids, she actually knew who the kids were. So late 90s, that's when this happened, early 2000. And whatever it is, they opened up, they let this thing out. And again, she knew these people, and what they experienced was on a bad side. But anyway, getting back to where I see some connection here. The Dogmen, this is how I believe it, my buddy believes it the same way, is that the Dogmen surround that area, and they do not let whatever it is in that house out. They're protectors at that point. It was kind of the same thing here with the wife, with this large black wolf thing. And yes, it looked like a wolf, not a Dogman. But I think they look out for us when we go out there. Of course, when we'd go out there, everything is respectful. Go back to the Native American roots or whatever, and that's how it was treated. But I am fully convinced that these things protect us from whatever is in that house. They keep people away from it. I mean, of course, you're going to have your typical village idiot that wants to go mess around and trespass, but well, it's a Darwin thing. We'll leave it at that. But to me, with a lot of the bad experiences, I haven't had any, and they are with what's going on at that house. I can't get over it. It's something that you don't normally hear of. At least I haven't. And, I've only been watching these podcasts for probably a year or so. So there could be tons of other stories. I don't know. But other than that, I've had no bad experiences. Thank God. Maybe I'm blessed by God, or I got, Archangel Michael standing behind me when these things come out and play. I don't know. But I've had decent experiences with them. My buddy, the one that got thumped a little bit, he wasn't Native American. He was here, I'm going to go out there with a knife and an axe and see what I can stir up. But other than that, that's pretty much it with my experiences going from childhood to now. Now, last week, unfortunately, I had I don't know what that was. Maybe a skinwalker thing in a yard. I sent thick pictures of the height of where this thing was. But other than that, that's pretty much it. One last thing, regards to the different styles I have seen. I know there's different types. I don't get into that too much. I don't really follow that. A lot of it is your typical dog rear end, humanish type front end. For the most part, yes. For the one that was standing by the tree, I had a couple instances, one I didn't mention, but it is what it is. The one that was standing by the tree, that had human type legs. But other than that, the rest of them were your human business end and dog-like rear end. So, yeah, Vic, that's about what I got there for you. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, the either Wendigo or Skinwalker thing that I had to deal with here, that was, I think I dated that. I had talked to my aunt on that. That was either on the 14th or the 15th of this month. But the typical long, lanky body. It had fur on it. It was gray. Give you an idea. Check out a deer's antlers. When they got the velvet on it, that's what it looked like. The only thing that was weird, shoulders. I have a spot or a light up in the tree. I measured it yesterday. I think it was. It's 83 inches, so it's just under 7 feet. That was at its shoulders. Tall, lanky, skinny. Didn't look emaciated or whatever that word is. Hungry. It didn't look like that. It was actually. It had the body of. It was muscular. picture Bruce Lee when he would flex. It was like that, very defined. Its head, it was a larger deer head, but its eye location was more predatory. They were more forward facing. It didn't have eyes. And when I mean that, I didn't see any. It was like the fur, skin, or whatever was covering its actual eye sockets. And the only other thing that was kind of odd about it was its antlers. I guess that's what you would call them. They didn't go out wide and then go up. They kind of almost went straight up on its head, kind of came forward just a little bit and then arced up hard on a 90-degree angle. And they were thick. They almost looked like a bunch of thorns, which was kind of weird. They weren't like a normal deer. They was like thorns. And this thing took a couple steps. Distance from our tree to the other tree light was maybe 20 to 25 feet. It took a couple steps, didn't look at me, and then it just kind of faded out. It faded out like the movie Predator, how it kind of gives you that mirage look. It did that and faded out. And for me, it was on one side of my driveway, and I was on the other side. I just kind of looked down and went, well, said some choice words and went back inside and proceeded to tell the wife about it. And thank God. And that's about it. I'm in one piece. I haven't become any Dogman's bowel movement, so I am happy. And that's it. That's it for me. You're talking from early 80s till last week. And I appreciate your time, Vic.
Wow, Keith, that is a lot of Dogman encounters. I don't know how you've been able to keep your sanity after having so many.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those things. I think it really depends on the people. You don't have to be Native American or anything to deal with this stuff, but I think they pick up, and I've heard other people say this, they pick up on your emotions, your energy. I mean, I really think they do. They know I carry. I'm a CPL carrier, which in Michigan is a concealed pistol license. I carry anything from 9mm in pistol form up to, we'll say, 7.62 in pistol form. So depending on where I'm at, it's what I'm carrying. Even if I'm armed, these things know I'm not going to do anything to it. Why? There's no sense in it. Like Kai said, they just want to live.
Well, thank goodness for that they don't give you any problems. Well, Keith, I'm sure the listeners have tons of questions they'd love to ask you, and I was thinking about airing a live stream this Friday night. Would you be okay with coming back to answer their questions if I did that?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Well, that makes it easy. If that's the case, then yeah, this Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll air that live stream so the listeners can do that. Hopefully they'll have plenty of questions for you, which I'm pretty sure they will. But having said that, thanks again so much for your time and for coming on and sharing these experiences with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks again so much and have a great night.